3 to 6 p.m.
Very interesting piece in The Citizen. They're reporting that more than 11,200 people have made compensation claims, the total claims coming up to about 15.5 million rand from the compensation fund after contracting COVID-19 following their return to work. So there are a large number of these claims, but is the legal position entirely clear on this? Justin Hattingh is a senior legal advisor at Strata-G Labour Solutions and joins us on Afternoon Drive. Mr. Hattingh, welcome and thanks for your time.
Good afternoon, John. Thank you for the opportunity to chat to you this afternoon.
Yeah, so according to The Citizen, you say, well, it's complicated. So tell us why it's complicated and what in particular might become clearer over time.
So I think the main thing we need to look at, John, is that unfortunately there's been quite a reluctance to actually comply with COVID-19 by a lot of South Africans lately, especially after the president said, well, look, you don't need to take the vaccine. But once again, on the other hand, employers have a duty to ensure a safe working environment for their staff in terms of both the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the common law. And in doing that, they need to then implement certain things like a pandemic policy. They need to ensure that people then do comply with all the COVID regulations and then would have to submit a certificate saying that they're fit to return to work. And in doing that, if someone then is exposed during their work or the course and scope of their duties, they will then suffer a loss of income and then they should be entitled to claim from the compensation fund.
So one of the things that strikes me, I mean, having worked in different workplaces over the time of the pandemic, is there are the things that companies do and try to do, and then there's the behavior of your colleagues. And I would have thought the latter is a hard thing to measure. A company might say, well, our policy is you always have to wear a mask as soon as you come through the gates or doors of the premises. However, we cannot be online at every moment and at every time to check that people are doing it because we're trying to run a factory or a radio station or whatever it is. How do you think the law might judge that? Because a company could come up and say, listen, this is between a group of individuals. Is that a defense?
Absolutely not. I mean, at the end of the day, as I said before, the law makes it very clear. You need to ensure that you comply with the COVID-19 regulations, number one. Number two, you need to ensure a safe working environment for your staff. And, you can do, as you said, everything you would like and is humanly possible. But at the end of the day, there might be certain staff members that won't comply. And that's why the compensation fund says, well, look, even if the employer wasn't negligent, but the employee suffered an injury or contracted an illness such as COVID in the workplace, you can then still claim because, at the end of the day, you deduct those monies every month from the staff members. They are indemnified, and if they suffer a loss of remuneration, then they are entitled to claim.
I can imagine a kind of domino effect around a certain set of conversations where an employer might say, okay, if you're going to insist on your right to compensation for non-compliance, we are going to insist on very high levels of compliance so that, for example, people have to every week or every fortnight or every month or whatever it is deemed to be appropriate, you're going to have to come in with proof of a negative COVID-19 test. Can companies do that?
Absolutely. As I said, one of the things that an employer is entitled to do is implement policies in its workplace. And when someone takes up employment with a new employer, they implicitly agree to be bound by the policies and procedures of that employer. Now, as we know, employers are exposed to serious penalties if they don't comply with the regulations.
Right.
And in order to then make sure that they comply and that they also are not held liable in terms of criminal law or even from a personal injury perspective, they are entitled to insist on those policies, implement them in the workplace, and then insist that their employees actually comply with them. And if the employees then don't comply, then they could be disciplined and ultimately dismissed.
And the thorny one that I'm sure will come up, have companies been having conversations with you, Mr. Hattingh, about whether they can insist on vaccination as a condition of employment? Is that in the ether? Is it in the conversation?
Once again, as I said, that comes up all the time. Employers want to know that. And as I said, the best way to do it is to make sure that you put a policy in place that deals with this. You need to get buy-in from your staff members and ensure that they understand the reason for why you're implementing it.
Right.
They need to know that it's not only for the company's safety, but for their own safety as well. Because if we don't have a proper policy in place, and if there's going to be a majority of staff members who refuse to take the vaccine, then it could be a situation where we have a super spreader in the workplace, everyone is booked off, and then everyone is not able to earn an income during that time. So it has a knock-on effect, and I think it's very important to explain why you're implementing that policy, what the purpose of it is, and why it's so important for people then to comply.
Yeah. Justin Hattingh, Strategy Labour Solutions Senior Legal Advisor, raising lots of really interesting points, which prompts me to ask you if you want to call in to tell us about, either as a manager of a workplace or perhaps the owner of a business, how you've dealt with COVID-19 compliance. As a person who works at a place of work, maybe you're not in a situation where you can do any or all of your work virtually. What are you experiencing? Do you feel that you work in a safe workplace?